Good morning, everybody. Thanks, everybody, for being here, taking time out of your summer to be here for our announcement. Very happy and excited to welcome Stan as our new general manager, executive vice president of hockey. I sat here a little under a year ago talking to many of you about Daryl Cates' vision for the organization and my thoughts on trying to be best in class in everything we do, and I was going to take some time to assess things. I think we've made some strides over the last 12 months, and I think adding someone of Stan's experience and stature in the game to our group is a real step forward, and super excited to have you, Stan.
Thanks, Jeff.
Stan and I share a vision about how to put a team together on the ice and also try to be an elite organization in the front office, forward-thinking and progressive. We spent a lot of time talking about that, and I feel very, very comfortable that our visions are aligned in that regard. I spent a number of weeks interviewing a bunch of excellent candidates from across the league, and I kept coming back to the fact that, Stan, with his experience as a general manager and his success in Chicago, having won 3 cups during his tenure there, having gone through and learned a lot about himself and about the need to try to make a difference in hockey culture, I just kept coming back to he was the guy, and he was the one that I ultimately decided on, obviously, so that's why we're sitting here today. And I know that some of you are going to have questions about Stan's tenure in Chicago. Let me be very clear. What happened at Kyle Beach in 2010 was wrong, was horrible. It wasn't handled properly at the time. I think Stan has acknowledged and taken full responsibility for the inadequate response. But I also know that he's spent a great deal of time in the 2.5 years since then to educate himself, to try to learn. He's done a lot of work with Sheldon Kennedy, who's one of the foremost experts in the field of abuse, sexual and otherwise, and has, I think he came out last week with his op-ed supporting Stan, which was, to me, part of my process was talking to Sheldon, because I know that he had done a lot of work with Stan over the years, and when I talked to Sheldon a couple weeks ago, he gave a full endorsement of Stan's work, his commitment, the fact that he's sure that he learned from his mistakes. So that was a big part of the decision for me. We wouldn't have made this hire without knowing that Stan had done all that work. Sheldon asked if he could be here today to support Stan. We're honored that he's here. I have a long relationship with Sheldon. It goes back 25 years, all the way back to the start of the Respect Group when it was in its infancy. And I respect his opinion on this, and so I'm glad that he's here today. Thanks for coming. So in closing, I'm very excited to welcome Stan. Super excited to work alongside him as we try to be an elite organization both on and off the ice, and I'm sure Stan's going to bring not only his hockey acumen, but his the things that he's learned in the last couple of years to make us a better organization and help us create a culture, a really good culture around our great sport. So thanks, and Stan, I'll turn it over to you for a few remarks.
Thanks, Jeff. Hello, everybody. I'm very excited and honored to be sitting here in front of you, to be able to restart my career in the game of hockey. I've loved the sport of hockey since I was a little kid, and I've had a chance to reflect on things over the last couple of years since I've been out of the game. So I'd like to kind of look forward to where we're headed with the organization and with my role. So I'm not here to relitigate the past, but I do think it's important to start off by touching on my departure from the Blackhawks in a couple seasons ago. I can tell you in this room and everyone watching as well as something I've said directly to Kyle Beach, that my response was inadequate back in 2010. I didn't handle things properly. I should have done more, and that's something I regret, and it's something that I've had a chance to reflect on and try to learn from. As he mentioned, I've had a chance to get to know some people in the last couple of years, Sheldon Kennedy being one of them. In addition to Sheldon, I've had a chance to work with his group. I've also had a chance to work with Kyle Beach and other people. And in that process, I feel like I've learned some things that I didn't know, and I've learned ways that I could do a better job in the future. And I can tell you without a doubt that those things will never happen on my watch again. I'm looking forward to a chance to make a difference in the organization. And my work with Sheldon has encompassed a couple different areas, in particular with working on the culture of hockey. And I think the situation with Kyle Beach and back in 2010, I think it's become something that we've talked a lot about. And I guess to summarize, it would be, we want to try to make this a better place for the sport better, and I think we can all handle situations better. And the only way to do that is to learn from the mistakes that were made and try to improve. And I'm committed to that. I'm excited for what's ahead. I'm thankful for the NHL and Gary Bettman for giving me a second chance. And in particular, I'm grateful for the Oilers to give me this opportunity. I know how important it is that I be a true leader, and that's something that I'm excited about and I look forward to. So turning to hockey, I can say that just like a lot of the people in this room and in this city, I was a fan watching the playoffs, not only the playoffs, but just the regular season, to see the journey that the Oilers went on this season. And, it was obviously not the ending that we wanted, one game short, but it was impressive to see. I think my reflections would be one of amazement at the excitement of the fans, and without a doubt, this is the best fan base in all of hockey. I watched the passion that they display for the team, the support that they give, both in the arena, outside the arena, in the community. You could tell that the Oilers captivated this town. And, when you're working in sports, the one thing you do want is you want to have that support of your fans. So this is a tremendous opportunity, and it's one that I'm excited to be part of. The guy to my left here did a tremendous job this summer. He and his staff, I think, should be commended for the acquisitions and the additions to the team. It was already a strong group, and I think it's even stronger now. So, the chance to work with some special players, there's some generational talent on this team that, I've had a chance to work with some great players in the past, and I'm so excited for what's to come. So, in closing, I just want to thank everyone here, and I know Daryl Cates' vision is to bring the Stanley Cup back to Edmonton, and I can say that I'm all for that.
Thanks very much, gentlemen. We'll open it up to questions right now. I see one over here. Bob Stauffer, go ahead.
Bob Stauffer, Oilers Radio Network. Question for you, Stan. Jeff mentioned Kyle. You mentioned Kyle Beach as well. When's the last time you spoke to Kyle, and have you spoken to him since getting this position as the new general manager of the Edmonton Oilers? Thanks,
Bob. Yes, I actually called Kyle last night to give him a heads up that this was happening today, and we had a nice conversation. We talked for about 15 minutes, and I don't want to share the details of it, but I will say it was a very encouraging conversation, and I should probably share a little bit of a background on how I got to work with Kyle and his team last summer. So when I left the Blackhawks, I reached out to Kyle, and I didn't hear anything back from him. So I understood that, obviously it was a tough time back then. This was shortly after I left the Blackhawks. I didn't get a response. And a few months later, I started working with Sheldon. And in our time together, at one point, Sheldon just said, have you ever talked to Kyle Beach? And I said, I tried to reach him, but I didn't hear back. And he said, I understand that. Sometimes it's a lot to process, and you might not be ready for that. So, you might want to think of giving it some time, but you might want to think about reaching out to him again at some point. So I took that to heart, and then some more time passed. We were doing some things together, which I can get to at a later point in this discussion. But I reached out to Kyle, and the second time I did, I texted him. He responded. He said, "Yeah, I'd be willing to talk." So, I wasn't sure what to make of that call. Like, preparing for it, I didn't know if it was going to be a 30-second call or it was going to be a longer discussion. So my goal in reaching out was to apologize and to, let him know that I felt for everything he had went through. And, the conversation, we ended up talking probably for close to 90 minutes. Covered a lot of different things. We certainly talked about 2010 and that situation, but then, things shifted. We started talking about his family. He had a young son recently. He was married. He was talking about his playing career ending, and he also talked about now he was a coach. And he asked me what I was working on, and I shared the work that I had been doing with Sheldon and the Respect Group. We had created this charter, which we were working with teams, some junior teams. And when I explained what it was all about, he said, sort of offhand, he said, "Wow, that sounds great. We sure could have used that on our team." And I said, "Well, we are working with teams. Like, if you're really interested, I'd be happy to come work with your team." He said, "Yeah, I sure would. I'm not the head coach. Why don't I, have a conversation?" So then the three of us talked a couple days later, and they were on board. They said, "We'd love to have you come out work with our team." So we scheduled to work with his team as well as the women's team at Trinity Western, where he is. And I think that was a big moment for both of us to go out there. We spent a day and a half together. We certainly reflected on the past, but I think it was more so looking ahead to how we could kind of mend fences, and I could bring something of value to his team. So that was really how it all came to be. This was almost a year ago. It was last August that we worked with his team and with the women's team. So I've kept in touch with him since that point, like throughout their season, and so I understand the interest in that, and I hope that provides some context as to how we've been working together.
Thank you. We'll go to Slav over here on the right.
Hey, Jeff. Is there any concern from your perspective on backlash from fans and a negative perception that this hire could have on the organization?
I think fans are entitled always to their opinion. They have opinions about firing coaches and making trades and everything else. I think that the decision to bring Stan in is one that is in the best interest of the organization for a number of reasons that I touched on in the opening. I have to respect the fans' opinions. I think that Stan's work over the next few years here will dictate how they respond. I think they'd give him a chance. I think that some of the facts that haven't been out there are now getting out into the public. And so I'm not worried about it. My job is to try to make an elite organization and have people that are collaborative and progressive and good people. And I think Stan has all those things.
Thanks, Jeff. We'll go to Jason.
Stan, Jason Greger, Sports 1440. I read Sheldon's release, and I think we all know that sexual abuse is a real big issue in society. You talked about your conversations with Kyle. what did you learn in your conversations with Sheldon about the destructive power of silence? Not only for Kyle, but for not saying anything about Aldrich and his future victims in Miami and then at the Houghton High School.
I think the biggest thing I learned from Sheldon is what you kind of just touched on, which is the negative power of silence and not taking a bigger role. And I think that's what, when I look back on it, that's what I reflect on is, you don't want to assume other people are doing things when you want to take an active role and make sure that things happen that are supposed to happen. So that's a learning experience, and that's what I'm going to take away from that, which is you want to make sure, I think Sheldon said that there's the bystander effect, and you want to make sure that you do what you can to play a part and play an active role in those types of situations.
And just one quick follow-up to that.
Yeah.
In your position now as a general manager of a National Hockey League team and a very passionate fan base, it is a big problem in society, and I know people we talk about sports. Are you going to be able to use your position to further the cause, to change it, and if so, how?
Well, I want to, Jason. What I really believe in is, there is ability to make change and to learn from situations and to grow from them. And I think that's what I look at. And the other thing that Sheldon and I talked a lot about is, and this is really what the charter also helps, is certainly what happened to Sheldon and what happened to Kyle is terrible. And it's, fortunately, that's not as common as other things that happen on teams. Harassment, hazing, bullying, those things, those are probably more common. So we want to get rid of all of it, not just what happened to Sheldon and happened to Kyle. Those are clearly awful situations. But the charter work is to look at a team where you may not have that going on, but you have other things that can tear at the fabric of the culture on your team. So I think that's what encouraged me, was to, because I don't think you want to focus just on one thing. The whole idea is you want to try to make sure that there's positive things. And this is the way I explain it. I've had a chance to work with, done a lot of work with USA Hockey, working with their kids at the festivals just a couple weeks ago. And what I tell them is, these are kids that are teenagers aspiring to become professional players. And I said, I hope all of you guys in this room become NHL players. Some of you will, some of you won't. Even the ones that do, there's going to be a day when your career is over. And I hope that when you look back on your time as an athlete, from the time you were a kid until the time you finish, I hope you look back with fondness that you had a good experience on that team. Now, certainly what happened to Sheldon, what happened to Kyle, that's not the case. They don't look back with fondness. So how can we make sure that we're doing the things, and the charter is a tool. It's not everything, but it's a process that a team can go through so that they can be supportive and that they can get rid of bad situations. That's really my goal, and it's something that I'm hoping to do, into the future. This isn't something I'm not going to help out anymore. I want to give my time. I want to be devoted to that stuff.
Thank you. Up front here, go ahead.
Thank you so much. It's Shaylan Skolsky with CTV News. The question is actually for both of you, but Stan, to you first. There was a second victim in all of this. Have you made any attempt to reach out to that second victim or his family as part of your reparations? And if not, what is your message to them? And to Jeff, a similar question. Has the organization reached out to that second victim or his family and Kyle Beach as part of your consultations?
I don't want to go into the past. I think Kyle was the person that I had the involvement with, and I know I let Kyle down. And certainly anyone that's been negatively impacted, I feel for them, and I certainly wish they didn't go through that. So, my heart goes out to them, and it's something that I want to try to be better at going forward.
Yeah, and I've spoken with Kyle myself a couple weeks ago. Had a good conversation. He was very supportive of Stan's reinstatement. As far as the second victim, I don't think anyone knows who that is. I'm not sure who the person is, so it's not possible to reach out to them. I think that if that's something that's necessary, we'll do that. But at this point, I don't know who that person is.
Okay, thank you. Tom, on the right here.
Hey guys, Tom Gazzola, Edmonton Sports Talk. Jeff, I just asked you a decision of this magnitude, significance. Did you have to have conversations within the organization? Did you have to consult with players perhaps and kind of prepare everyone to bring Stan back into the NHL and then of course with the Oilers organization?
Well, of course, I talked to Daryl extensively about it, and some of the other senior management in OEG. I did not talk to the players. I think I sat here when we were talking about hiring Chris Knobloch. Same situation applies. The players, they're consulted on many things on a day-to-day basis, about their travel, about their practice schedule, about how they're feeling about things. They're not consulted on firing and hiring coaches or general managers. That's not what they want. They don't want to do that. So, no, I didn't talk to the players about it, but I did talk to Daryl and senior management.
Thank you. We'll go to Derek on the left here.
Hey, Stan. Derek Van Diest, NHL.com. I just wanted to ask you, you come into a situation here with this team. They did most of the heavy lifting in the offseason. You have the roster set. But I just want to ask you what your vision is for the future of this team. And obviously the big thing that surrounds this team is the signing of Leon Draisaitl, the signing of Connor McDavid in 2 years. How are you seeing this team develop, and what's your vision for this team in the future?
Sure. Yeah, great question. Well, starting with Leon, I mean, Leon's a star player, and he's top priority for me. I mean, I want Leon to be an Oiler for life, and he's a fantastic player. I've enjoyed watching him play, and I think what sets him and Connor apart from pretty much anyone else is in the game is they're certainly stars, but they're that rare breed that can elevate their game in the playoffs, which is a hard thing to do. I mean, the games get harder. The attention on them gets higher, and you look at their performance, and they're the best there is. So, yes, I think that's a priority. They clearly are a big part of what we're doing, but it does take a team to win. So I think as looking into the future, what we want to try to do is and there's a great supporting cast right now. I mean, this is a great roster that Jeff has assembled. There's certainly a lot to be excited about. And in the coming years, there's always going to be challenges with the salary cap and with, but when you have, the hardest thing to do in the game is to get star players. That's it. That's the hardest thing to do. We've got them, and they're a huge part of this community, this team, and they're going to be going forward.
What parallels do you see in this team than the one you inherited in Chicago? Are there similarities there?
Certainly some common elements to have those star players. When in Chicago, Kane and Taves were just starting their careers, and Seabrook and Keith, and those guys were younger than now. Connor and Leon are in the prime of their career, but I think there are some differences. But I think the key thread between both of them is you have those impact players that can make such a difference. But I look back at the success that our teams had, and as great as those stars were, it really was a team effort, and I think that's what you want to try to build. And I think it's going to be important to spend some time getting to know the coaching staff. I mean, just from afar, I thought they did a tremendous job this year. It was great to see the impact that they had on the team. So that I'm looking forward to learning from them, and looking forward to meeting the players and learning from them as well. I've found over my time as a general manager, I really like to talk to the players to understand how they see the game. I mean, they're closest to it. They're the ones on the ice, and they love watching. And I find they're really good students of the game, so you can pick things up and learn. Like Jeff said, they don't want to be in charge of doing a manager's or a coach's job, but I do think it's important to tap into their knowledge. I mean, they're great for a reason. It's because they study it and they have a lot of interesting ideas. So I plan, to form that relationship and that connection.
Great, thank you. At the back here, back left. Go
Hey,
ahead.
Stan. Adam Zaccarelli with City News. Were there any other opportunities that were presented to you when you were cleared to return to work, be it in other leagues, other roles, other positions, besides the Oilers general manager position?
Yes, there were. But when I was contacted by Jeff, that immediately got my attention. I mean, like I said, I watched this team and I see, and I have a relationship with Jeff going back to when he was an agent. We had some of his players in Chicago, so I've just kept in touch even since I left. I've kept in touch with just a number of people, colleagues that I used to work with, and so I've always been impressed with his approach, his mind. We've had a lot of conversations just about the business of hockey, the agency side of things. So when he reached out and we started talking, then that clearly went to the top of the list.
Thank you. Just stay on the left here. Go ahead.
Yeah, Preston, Daily Hive, Edmonton. This move on social media has garnered quite a bit of a negative reaction from a section of the fan base. So I just want to give you an opportunity to kind of address fans who woke up this morning and maybe weren't too happy to see the news.
Thanks for the question. I understand that. Listen, I respect people's opinion, and one thing I've learned over time is it's very difficult to try to talk people into things. So I'm not going to try to make an argument on why they should feel a certain way. The fans are perfectly, and I respect that. I respect the way that they feel. I think what I would say is it's going to be my job to try to win them over. And I think the goal is to try to do it through your actions as opposed to what you're saying. I understand where they're coming from, and I want to try to earn their respect over time, and it may not come right away, and that's okay. I'm going to stick with it. I'm here to make a difference, not only to make this team better on the ice, but to bring change and a positive environment around the whole team.
Thanks very much, Stan. At the back here, go ahead.
Eric Bay, Global News. Jeff, what are the Oilers doing to ensure a situation like what happened in Chicago doesn't happen again here in Edmonton?
Well, I guess since over the past 10 to 12 to 14 years, there's been a lot of this sort of stuff in society, and all organizations, good organizations, whether they're law firms or companies, our company OEG, we have mandatory training for safe workplace, for harassment. Everybody that works here has to take part in the program. So to the extent that we're all more educated in 2024, and we have to take these programs and live by them. It's part of a mandatory part of our employment. So I feel that's already in place here at OEG, and like I said in my remarks, like adding Stan's expertise and the work he's done is only going to make our hockey team better in that regard, because he's going to be able to pay it forward and teach all of us in the hockey department some of the things that we may not know right now.
Thank you. Yeah, we got time for a couple more here. We'll go to Jack Michaels.
Stan, Jack Michaels, Sportsnet. Just to follow up a little bit on what Derek was asking, you were able to extend that championship window to 7 or 8 years in Chicago, but it always seems to close kind of suddenly. Are there things you can take from that experience to apply to a somewhat similar situation where they're looking to extend it out another 4 or 5 years beyond what many people believe?
Yeah, I think that, looking back on my time in Chicago, I think you learn some things from that. And there are challenges in the sport with the salary cap, but everyone's dealing with the same challenge. And I think it's always better when you've got these impact players. They give you such a head start on it. I think the supporting cast is what's important. You have to be able to find players that can come in, whether it's young players or whether it's free agents. I think that's something that's going to be a focus for the organization, at least for me going forward. It's something that I felt was a strength of our group in Chicago, whether it's European free agents, college free agents, CHL free agents. The draft is an important element as well. I think even though you may not have first and second round picks because you're using those to improve your team, there's ways to, if you do it right, you can find players throughout the draft. So we're going to stress that. And talking to Jeff, like these are things where we're very aligned. And, I feel like that's something I'm very comfortable with. I have a lot of very strong views on, and making sure that it's a priority for us to, at the end of the day, you have to be able to find players to support your core group. Got a great core group here, and the key thing over the coming years is going to be making sure we have players that can come in, whether it's young players or lower priced players, but still make an impact on the roster.
Okay, thank you. Jason?
Stan, you were in Chicago for 10 years, I think, before you got the GM job, and you'd been in the conference final the year before. This is similar, and you come in as a GM for a team that's very good. Obviously, last Game 7 of the Cup, but you weren't here previous. So how is that different? How do you have to intertwine yourself to the organization where maybe you don't know as much as you did for those 10 years? How does that change your job as a GM this time? And what did you learn the last time in that first year to help you push the team to the top?
That's true. It was a little different. I had been in Chicago, like 9-10 years before I was named GM. So I was familiar with not only all the players, like I had a role in bringing them into the team, but also with the staff. So I knew everybody. I think coming in here, I don't know a lot of the people. So the beginning for me is going to be, building those relationships. I do think it's important to get to know people on a personal level, like our staff, our coaches, the people surrounding the support staff on the team, because they play a big role. I mean, what gets the most attention is the players that step on the ice and play the game. And at the end of the day, that's what matters, because they determine whether you win or lose. But you need to also have a cohesive group. So I think I'm looking forward to that, actually, like the chance to work with people that I haven't known before, to learn some new things. Like I certainly bring my experiences in, which I'm going to draw upon. I've got a lot of those, but I'm looking for new ideas. I'm looking for how we can innovate and be different and do things that maybe haven't been done before. So I'm going to be trying to get information and get ideas from people. So it's different, but they've got a great, and there's a lot of great pieces here. Like the team looks excellent. The one thing I've learned also, just talking about the team itself, which I guess I learned the hard way, is it's natural for all of us to look at last year's team and then figure we just need that one piece. And then, but I learned that's like next year's team is going to be next year's team. You don't want it to be last year's team and try to recreate what you had. You have to look into it like there's going to be things that are different, even with the same players. Like I think the natural human reaction is, well, this is where we were last year. We're just going to pick up where we left off and go from there. But my experience is that there's always some things that are even better than you thought, and some other things that don't go the way you thought. Like you expect, this is more like tactically, you expect like, well, we're just going to be, they had an incredible penalty kill and incredible power play in the playoffs, and we're going to be like that to start the year. I certainly hope we are, but chances are there's probably going to be some things that you are counting on aren't going to be there, and you're going to have to find ways to adapt. So really, it's looking forward as opposed to looking back and trying to recreate like what was good last year. I think you have to start with a baseline of certain things were successful and try those again. But I'm actually excited to talk to the coaches and the players about, let's look forward to what next year will be, not what last year was.
Thank you. Final question to Tom Gazzolo.
We're seeing kind of a shift in hockey front offices, tandems taking over, handling situations and negotiations and stuff like that, Jeff and Stan. I'd ask you how the tandem and dynamic will work between you two, especially considering the significance of Leon's contract coming up, Evan Bouchard and Connor McDavid also needing new deals.
Yeah, I mean, the model that we're going to have here in Edmonton is that we're going to work as a team. Stan's the general manager. He'll run the team day to day, but I've said this over the last month when I've been asked several times if I wanted to be the GM. I'm an active CEO. What that means is that I'm talking to the general manager often. I'm talking to the coach often. I'm not meddling, but I have my input. And Stan and I have like he mentioned, we have a long relationship that goes back to when we were both assistant general managers in the league, and then as an agent, I'm very confident that we'll work really well together, bounce stuff off each other. When we're doing the negotiations, we'll do them together, and Stan will take the lead, and I'll be there to support.
I think it's a great asset to have. I mean, Jeff's experience working on the team side, then going to become an agent, so he understands, how the agents are thinking, how the players are thinking, and I certainly want to tap into that. So I think it's a true collaboration. Like I love this stuff. I love to talk hockey all day long, and I don't have all the answers by far. I want to learn things from Jeff, and I know together we can get things done. So I think that's going to be something that's a great collaboration. I can't wait to get started.